Clueless in the pause, whether you're peri, meno, or post, I'm here every week to talk all things menopause, the things we're all thinking but not talking about. Trust me, someone is feeling exactly how you are. I'm Karen Thom, a women's life coach, and at 45, feeling perimenopausal. Each week, I'll be joined by an expert in their field, and we'll delve into pressing topics like, why do I hate my husband 3 days every month? Why do I feel my internal thermometer has bobbed off to the Caribbean? Why do I need strength training in my life? And why do my periods flood, ruining my best genes? We'll dive into the symptoms, why we experience them, and provide friendly tips to help. Get in touch, let us know how you're feeling, and send us your questions. We'll be answering them throughout the series. Hi, everybody. My guest this week is Anthea McCourtie. She's a registered nutritional therapist, personal trainer, and yoga teacher. At You By Anthea, she specialises in working with busy, driven women who are ready to unleash their body confidence, rediscover their energy, and feel as fabulous as they deserve. Anthea has been working with one-to-one clients for over 11 years. She runs corporate nutrition workshops and has contributed articles in the Stylist, Men's Fitness, and Yours publications. Anthea is a keen foodie, climber, and pole fitness enthusiast and has provided published recipes for Vicky Pattison's book, The Real Me. Morning, Anthea. How are you? Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. I'm good. I'm good. Despite the grey outside, I am feeling good.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's pretty bright where I am this morning, so it's like, oh,
Send some
fall.
down this way.
So, thanks so much for joining us this morning. So, today we're going to be talking about nutrition around peri, meno, post, pause, and everything that comes in between. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you work with your ladies?
Yeah, sure. So I call myself a transformation specialist. The reason is that I'm a registered nutritional therapist, personal trainer, and yoga instructor. I generally work with women offering all three of those areas because I think everything is so interlinked. With nutritional therapy, my main sort of clients are women 35, 40 plus who are driven, who are getting there and making it in some aspects of life, but the health side just isn't there and it's starting to have an impact.
Mm,
So I love to help them rediscover their confidence, especially their body confidence, and yeah, unleash their power and just find out how good they're designed and deserve to feel.
yeah.
So I generally do that in a very personalized way, but of course, there are definitely some general things that I see and that I'm always happy to share because perimenopause can be such a big transition, and I think it's brilliant that we're talking so much more about it now. But as we were saying when we were chatting before, there are still so many women who aren't quite as aware as we might think. And knowledge is power, and any tips that I can share is always going to be helpful.
Yeah. Oh, super. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you say, it is that point about there is so much information, but it's like where it's cutting through. I know that I'm a few years older than some of my friends. Some of them have no idea and potentially are already feeling some symptoms of a perimenopause, but have no idea that it's connected to what they will go through. And like, no, because that happens when you're in your 50s. And I'm like,
Mm.
oh, I mean, yes, it does, but there's, a
It's
good
a
few
longer process, I
before.
think, than many people realize.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it, isn't it? And like, I just don't think you don't, I mean, I didn't. Everybody that I've been speaking to, all of these incredible women, I'm like, oh my God, I thought I knew a bit. And then I'm coming away and like, right, okay, I need to have a little overhaul of XXX. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's really crucial that we do keep talking about it and just expanding the knowledge further. So I guess one thing to say is like I want to name this episode nutrition because specifically
Yeah.
it's around nutrition and helping us to be the strongest version of ourselves. It's not about dieting.
Mm.
it's about how we get the best for our body, for what our body needs in terms of those three phases
Yeah.
it's that we're going through.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important, and it's not just something to get conscious about as you're going through the perimenopause, but
Mm.
the more that you can kind of get on top of certain things, if you don't feel like you're going through perimenopause at the moment, the sooner you can sort of nail down some of the foundations, the better. So I tend to say for, women who are still cycling regularly, as in not bicycle cycling, but going through the menstrual cycle
Yeah.
regularly, if you're experiencing noticeable PMS, then that tends to be a sign that there is already some imbalance, which can get worse during perimenopause because you've got so much hormonal fluctuation before things eventually start to calm down after,
Yeah,
postmenopause.
yeah. Yeah,
So,
that's so true actually, because I think my cycle was probably one of the first indicators for me that something was changing because I'd never really had PMT, PMS,
mm,
however anyone calls it. But my period started getting so much heavier, and it took maybe a good 4 or 5 months and some ruining some of my most favorite genes of just
oh
fluidity
no.
that
Yeah.
I realized like, oh, something's not right here because it was just never this heavy. And I think that was when I started looking into it. It's like, what's going on? And then, yeah, all of a sudden it's like all of this information, perimenopause, perimenopause, peri. And
Yeah.
okay, maybe this
Because
I am.
sometimes we notice that our cycles are different, but during that hormonal fluctuation, it's like, you have to have that ovulation for the second sort of regular half of the cycle to be
Mm,
present. So it's only when you've got that ovulation, that egg gets released, that you get that progesterone. So even though we can still have our monthly bleed, there hasn't always been ovulation. So
right.
sometimes
Okay.
if you're just going by whether you've had your cycle, etc., it's not always going to be the case that ovulation's taken place. And so when you've not had that egg release, when you've not had the progesterone coming from that afterwards, that's when you get the more exaggerated imbalance. And
Right.
so quite a lot of the time, those hormonal fluctuation symptoms are when that estrogen gets more dominant. So it's not even that necessarily the estrogen level itself is high. In relation to progesterone, it's high. And it's often that the two hormones kind of work in opposition to each other. So
Mm,
quite often, even if we kind of think, oh, well, my cycles are still regular, but things are starting to feel a little bit different.
yeah.
Sometimes, that's things are already, yeah, taking place, and it can be a very gradual thing. I think it's really important to emphasize everybody's experience is different,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
there's like over 100 different symptoms associated with perimenopause, but in general, as a society, we're only really aware of the most common ones, the hot flushes, the
Yeah.
night sweats, the brain fog, but there's so many more.
Yeah, and I think in terms of like actual medical diagnosis, there's only is it overheating, like actual hot flashing, that is the
Yeah, there's only like a few things that,
recognized symptom that was like, okay, medically, this is a something. Everything else is kind of, I was going to say not holistic, but everything else is sort of like symptomatic kind of thing, but it's
yes.
clinically diagnosed
But
symptom.
our sex hormones have such an impact on all different parts of the body. We've got, estrogen receptors in all, I'm sure there's an exception or two, but pretty much all the cells in our body. So it really does impact, especially because, estrogen will encourage us to gain and store weight. Progesterone encourages us to burn off fat. Estrogen is, it will dampen our libido. Progesterone takes it higher. There's so much that works in opposition. So you
Yeah.
notice when that balance starts to shift. So although that's not really something that we can control that much without going down the external hormone route, and HRT is not something that I, as a nutritional therapist, am able to recommend or
Why?
dissuade from, and I'm very neutral in that respect, opinion wise. But there are things that we can do to influence how our body responds to that balance.
Mm,
For example, with that estrogen dominance, there is so much in just our reproductive years that can tip that balance as well. So things like foreign estrogens, xenoestrogens, can come in from cosmetics, they can come in from pesticides,
wow.
really random things like, the lining of sort of tin cans, BPA is one of the components in plastics. So you might find Tupperware that says it's BPA free, and I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but phthalate free. It's one of the hardest words to say. It's like PHTALATE, I
We'll
think.
go with it. We don't know.
Yeah. But those are the things that contain these xenoestrogens.
Mm,
And these xenoestrogens also in receipts randomly. So
you're right.
strange. Like, so careful if you're getting receipts, just how you handle them. Try and minimize contact because that can be absorbed through the skin. And I'm not sharing any of this to make people neurotic about things, but it's just helpful to be aware that we are living in an environment
Mm,
that has these xenoestrogens, which have a much stronger effect than our natural estrogen. So
yeah.
one of the things that we can do to help balance that is make sure that our body is detoxifying the estrogen that it's used. So things like our cruciferous vegetables or brassica vegetables, what are they? They're like broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. If you hate Brussels sprouts, try roasting them. I promise it makes them taste so much better. Things like that, kale, they
Yeah.
contain compounds that can specifically help to detoxify our estrogen. So basically, once it's been used up, it gets safely bound to compounds and then, we poop it out.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing then. So, I mean, I literally I think have about two heads of broccoli a week. It's like on everything, whether it's salads
Brilliant.
or like actually cooking. So like, okay, I'm maybe on a good start there.
Yeah.
And I guess that's important, isn't it? Because really, to think about the different types of hormones that we have, because most people focus on know about estrogen, and it's all about estrogen declining, estrogen declining. But
Yeah.
actually, there are like the progesterone, even like we also have some testosterone and things
Yeah.
like this, and they do
Absolutely.
also play a huge part.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. And with the progesterone, that is just coming from the egg. But what happens as well? Now, I don't want to paint a doom and gloom picture of what's going on. I do want to emphasize there's a lot that we can do naturally to kind of try and mitigate these things. But when we're going through perimenopause, our bodies are so much more sensitive to our stress hormones, particularly cortisol.
Mm,
And the real frustrating thing is that at this time of life, we tend to be experiencing so much more stress. Maybe we've got to a certain level in a career where workload demands are really increasing, demands of children. At this age, we've also got elderly parents that maybe, require more care and demand. So, stress is kind of up there at a time when we become so much more sensitive to it. And what happens is because stress is such a literally a life-saving response, it gives us that fight or flight. The body can't differentiate between you being, almost attacked by a saber-toothed tiger versus your boss sending you an email at whatever time asking for a deadline to be
yeah.
shortened. Your body can't differentiate between us. So it's always going to prioritize that stress response. And what happens is when we need to produce more cortisol, the body does this thing that we call the progesterone steal. So it can take some of the sort of the precursors to that progesterone and take it, so that can sort of lower it even more. But the good news is that there's a lot that we can do lifestyle and nutrition wise to support that cortisol response.
Yeah, and it is a
So,
killer as well. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm not an anxious person. But a few months ago, I had, let's say, an episode where I was literally like I could feel this flood, and it stayed
Mm,
with me for days afterwards. And it was really, I think probably because it's not something I'm used to,
yeah,
why it stayed. And it was like you could just feel that remnants of almost like a 2-day hangover or something.
yeah,
And it was such an awful feeling. Like I'd never felt something so strongly. Obviously, I've experienced anxiety and worry,
yeah,
things like this, but at this level where it was really the chemical that I just knew, yeah, it was such a horrible feeling.
yeah. And that's going to happen when you don't have that progesterone in the same level to sort of help calm things. But when we're going through a lot of stress, our bodies get depleted in magnesium. And magnesium is it's used in like over 300 reactions in the body, and it's got really, really important roles in supporting the body during stress. It's needed for relaxation, mental relaxation, as
Mm,
muscle relaxation. And we tend to, our body kind of rinses through it when we're stressed. We also lose a lot during sweat, during exercise. So we want to make sure that we've got foods rich in magnesium
yeah,
in our
would
diet. So
be.
that can come from nuts and seeds, dark green leafy veg, from avocados. That's a good one because avocados also contain vitamin B5,
Yeah.
supports our adrenal glands, which are the glands that are trying to churn out all this cortisol. So, that's a really good one. And with vitamin B5, like mushrooms, eggs, are really good sources as well. So ideal, hormone supportive food, making up a frittata or an omelette where you've got eggs, some mushrooms, put in
Mm.
some of those cruciferous veg and top with an avocado.
Done. This all sounds, and that's great because actually, this all sounds like really easy, accessible things that people can find every day in supermarkets. They're not having to
Yeah.
like go to Nepal to find some little fruit or something. It's things that they can pick up in the supermarket, which is great because I think sometimes you know, you have all of these incredible supplements and people say, oh, this is the great, this does this. But if you were buying all of these things, you would be spending hundreds and hundreds of pounds a month, which,
Yeah.
I mean, for the majority of people, that's just not feasible when you actually want to live life as well. So
Okay.
it's great to know that there's so much natural product around us that we can already just tap into.
Yeah, as a nutritional therapist, I'm always food first.
Yeah.
And the way that I work, if you imagine a pyramid, at the bottom are the foundations. So for me, the foundation level is laying down the basics. So blood sugar balance, and I'll talk about that in a bit because that's so important. But just making sure that you're getting nutrient-rich foods. And then above that, I would say would be kind of some supplements to correct deficiencies. So, I might generally say add some magnesium, but even that you can get in like bath flakes and the
Yeah,
Epsom
that's
salt,
great.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Also, great way to relax and help support that stress management.
Yeah.
And then at the top is what I call like the sexy hacks or like the cherry on top. Those are the sort of fancy ingredients like the adaptogens, the nootropics, the things that we probably just sound wild and wacky that can be really beneficial, but only really you're going to get the benefits once you've done the other things. And actually, the foundation levels can be so powerful and so effective. You don't have to go straight to the expensive stuff. And I'd say it's kind of almost a waste of money if you do that without, going
It's
through
like
the
it's almost
other.
like that cheat sheet, isn't it? It's like, oh, well, if I'm doing this, then I must be doing something great. But actually, if you're not doing, like you just said, the basics, then
Yeah,
really it's almost like that somatic, it makes you feel better because you're like, oh,
yeah,
what I'm actually doing.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and a lot of people, I mean, I also throughout the month definitely feel as my cycle is changing,
Hmm.
different. And I don't know if it's water retention, water gain, but like
Yes, yeah,
especially around the mid area, just like bloating, where it's like
yeah,
I can put my jeans on in the morning and I'm like, these feel quite good, but literally by lunchtime, I'm like, oh my God, I need to get changed or undo a button.
yeah.
It's just too tight.
Yeah, I mean, there can be some sort of disruptions in the gut microbiome. We can get a little bit more sensitive to things. So one of the things that I recommend, and this is sort of for women, no matter what stage they're at, like I mentioned, balancing blood sugar.
Mm.
And that's really, really important, not just to cut down on the amount of sugar that you're having, because that can really contribute towards bloating.
Would you say that that was like natural sugar, like from fruits and things, and processed food, or
It doesn't really matter. In terms of actual blood sugar balance, sugar is going to be sugar. Yes, that ideally, if we are going to add sugar to things, we want it to come from a more natural source. But we want to make sure, and this is really important, to make sure that we've got protein and fiber in each meal. Because if we've just got sort of carbohydrates, then that gets broken down to sugar in the digestive tract, and then that sugar gets taken into the bloodstream. We'll get a blood sugar rise, perfectly normal. But if we've got a lot coming in, and that's not even necessarily from sugar, it could just be from your carbohydrates, then the body responds by producing insulin that takes it away into cells. If there's too much sugar coming in, the body panics, throws out a lot more insulin, and then takes that sugar away into cells. Then you might get that energy crash, and then you're picking yourself up with coffee, another sugary snack, etc. So we want to smooth that out as much as possible. And one of the ways that we can do that is by making sure that we're having protein and healthy fats along with that carbohydrate.
what would that be? What kind of foods would that be?
So with protein foods, we're looking at meat, fish, some dairy foods like yogurts or cheese. Live yogurt is so good because it's got those healthy probiotics for our gut.
Yeah.
Eggs, if you're vegetarian, then things like pulses, legumes, beans, those are going to be your proteins. And
Mm.
then with healthy fats, definitely go for olive oil, extra virgin olive oil if you can. It is more pricey than vegetable oils, but that's the one thing that I'll say never compromise, because we want to avoid some of
And
the
you can,
pro-inflammatory things.
yeah, and you can really taste the difference, can't you? I bought some,
Yeah.
I think it was Greek, but it was like really high in the, I probably say this wrong, but polyphenols.
Yes, and
It
that's so
really
good for the
had,
gut.
yeah, and it really had this really sort of like I loved it, like really pepper. My husband was like,
Yeah, I was going to say the higher the
"Awful,
polyphenols, the more
peppery." I really loved it.
yeah,
It's quite
it's
refreshing.
gonna it's going to taste. And one of the reasons why the blood sugar control is so important, and with this, we want to stick to 3 meals a day. We want to ditch the snacks
Why is
because
that important?
so that's important for a few reasons. Each time we eat, we're going to get that insulin release. What happens is we get less sensitive to insulin. So although we get more sensitive to cortisol, the stress hormone
Yeah.
during perimenopause, we get less sensitive to insulin. Now, the reason why that's so important is insulin, obviously, it's very important, but it is a fat storer. So that's why a lot of people will say, I'm doing exactly the same thing that I did before, but I'm going through perimenopause and my body shape's changing or I'm gaining weight. And a lot of that is due to insulin, and that insulin and cortisol combo are why we get that midsection weight gain. So
Right,
people's body shape starts to change, and the more frequently you eat, the more you're going to get that insulin release. But
right.
also we need time in between meals to like let our gut rest a little bit, just give it that time to chill, so we're not constantly in a fed state. But we're very used to being able to snack now. Food is so available to us. None of us hopefully have to worry about where our next meal is coming from. That can be quite a tricky change, but it can have a really powerful effect on that sort of insulin response, and that can impact our energy levels as well if we've got constant energy fluctuations.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
aware I'm making waves on the camera, but
I see where you're at. But yeah, I mean, you just know it, don't you? Like after lunch, you kind of go on and whatever, then it's like comes like 2, 3 o'clock, and it's like, oh, what can I have here? And
yeah.
then come sort of like 5, half 5, whatever, then already just feeling like, okay, tired, whatever you want to do
Yeah.
in the evening, it's like, right, I need a coffee or something for a pick me up
Yes.
to actually get me past this.
Yeah, and the blood sugar control has such a powerful knock-on effect for everything else, because low blood sugar, once you've hit that spike, is a trigger for cortisol to get released.
Yeah.
Um, so they work very closely together. But what I find with my clients, once we work, and this is one of the foundation levels, once we work to balance that, even though we might be working on something completely different, they'll always say to me after a while, do you know what? I got my period this month and I didn't even notice a few days before. Normally I get X, Y, and Z symptom.
Hmm.
So it's such a powerful factor that you can manage so relatively easily by
Yeah.
just changing the combinations of foods, by, avoiding the snacks. And, sometimes that might mean that you're making your meals bigger. If you're used to sort of grazing throughout the day, then, be aware it might be a bit of an adjustment and you might feel like you overcompensate to start, but that can have such a powerful impact on energy.
Yeah.
So
So I
definitely.
guess it is that point, isn't it? Like going back to what you were saying earlier, it's like it feels like, and I know I do this all the time. It's like skipping to the sexy sort of like
Yeah.
sexy hacks rather than just really nailing those real basics of more vegetables, more of those cruciferous vegetables,
Yeah.
the more proteins, keeping an eye on like your carbohydrates and things like that,
Yeah.
like what you are taking. It's like nailing those basics, and that really will carry you far. But I think it's interesting. I was reading something a few weeks ago, and it was about different. It was about women from different parts of the world, and it was talking about how people they can see now really like how people really experience menopause differently.
Mm.
And they were saying that in Asia that there's really, I mean, like, as in I think it was more like Japan really.
Yeah.
Japan, women really have so many less symptoms and so many less issues. And they were talking about like I guess a lot of soya and things like that and plant-based things in their diet that it really makes quite a big difference.
Yeah, so this is I'm really glad that you brought up soya because it's one of these things that we've kind of taken and run with it. But what happens in a lot of these Asian countries that they have it, they will quite often have fermented soya, which is always going to be my preferred recommendation, but they will have it alongside sort of fish and other a little bit of fish and other things because with soya it works as a phytoestrogen. So I talked about like the xenoestrogens from the
Yeah,
chemicals, etc. Phytoestrogens are plant-based estrogen-like compounds. They can attach to those cell receptors and block off some of the more potent uh,
right,
xenoestrogens. It's Phytoestrogens are quite cool because they can help you if you've got too little estrogen. I mean, they are quite weak sort of
right.
impact, but they can help. But they can also help to block off stronger estrogen if you've got too much estrogen in the body. Uh,
Mm,
but with soya, when you ferment it, it takes out a lot of the, I don't want to say bad, but a lot of the less desirable compounds in it. Because if you're having a lot of soya, and this is one of the things that I generally say, if you're going plant-based, to just be mindful of, there are phytates that can block the absorption of minerals. So
right.
when you're fermenting those, things like tempeh, which you can actually find really reasonably priced in a lot of supermarkets now. I
Yeah,
find it in Lidl,
yeah, we got
as
some
well
a
as
few weeks
Sainsbury's.
ago. Yeah. It didn't taste like I had it when I was in Lombok once and it was tasted great and we bought some and then Sam was
It's
like,
not.
what the hell is this? This isn't what I had. It is what I had. I was like, but
There's
clearly
lots of
I'm
different
not
ways to
versed.
use
Yeah,
it.
I'm not versed in the way to prepare this in the most tasty way. So it tasted really bland, but
Yeah.
and
And I
that's got a
think,
really good texture as well. So it
yeah,
feels a
I
bit
really
more.
like it. I do
Yeah.
like I marinate it in like a sort of satay sauce,
Oh,
which is good.
okay.
I use it in stir fries. I actually have a really cool beetroot and tempeh burger recipe where you're kind of blending them and putting them together.
That sounds
Yeah,
great.
and a lot of soya is, unless you're, and again, this is one of the things, unless you're buying organic, it's likely to have a lot of pesticides because most of it is genetically modified.
Mm,
So that's not to, again, like sort of panic alarm, but it's just being mindful of things. So if you're like taking in all the soya, chill out with it a little bit, just sort of try and make sure that you're going for other protein sources as well. Variety is so important in any case. And One of the reasons why it is really good as well is that it is a complete form of protein that is plant-based. And I will add, I'm not somebody that advocates an either-or dietary
Yeah.
approach to anything.
Okay.
There's very few foods that I will say definitely don't have, and they tend to be more like the sort of the trans fats, the hydrogenated fats, or like commercialized seed oils. I say
And things that,
stay
yeah.
away from. But having more plants in your diet is great. It benefits us. But I just don't think that things need to be an either or approach. Now, I totally get some people don't eat meat or animal products for like their ethical values. And in that case, I'd say, just make sure you're getting that variety, make sure you're getting good levels of protein. But I think, yeah, maybe we can switch to more plant foods, still with some meat, animal products, but going for like more quality in those foods.
Yeah,
So,
and I think in that way as well, I'm talking from my own experiences, like getting more innovative where you're putting some of those things, because
yeah,
I switched up what a lot of we were putting into salads and stuff, and now like I started putting in courgette, I started putting in raw
yeah,
broccoli and like loads of seeds and a few different bits like that, and I was like, actually, it's like
yeah,
I think we really, yeah, and I love it now, but I think sometimes we really have this old kind of thinking of like 3 meals a day, meat and two veg, the kind of hot da da da, and that's changing. But
yeah,
like having that perception of like broccoli, well, no, that's like a dinner item, so that goes
yes,
and it's fine.
yeah,
It's like actually, for me, anyways, like suspending all of that and just throwing everything into whatever. And I
yeah.
really
Do you know
enjoy it.
that's such a good point as well, because for me, protein is so important because not only does it help to balance the blood sugar, we need it to support muscle growth because again, so unfair. Women really do lose muscle as we age. And I'm talking like after the age of 30. So
Yeah.
not even in peri, like it starts by 30, we start to lose 3 to 8% of our muscle mass each decade.
Wow.
And then once we're over 60, that really increases.
Yeah.
So obviously strength training is important, but
It's
muscle,
hilarious when we think that we're trying to. I was always really resistant to strength weight training, because I was
so
like, oh
many of
my
us
God,
were.
I'm gonna get massive. I'm gonna be like Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of
Yeah.
thing. And then you start doing it and you're like, oh my God, I cannot build any muscle. It's actually so hard.
Do you know what? With my clients as well, I do explain to them, and I'll just emphasize that, protein is what we need to help build muscles. But I do explain to clients, and sometimes I will sort of go to the effort of showing them exactly what a woman needs to do to build bulk muscle. And it's a hell of a lot. No
Yeah,
one, and I'll emphasize this, no one is ever going to do that by accident. It is such because it is harder for women than men,
yeah,
but it's such a dedicated training regime. You are eating so much protein, etc. So don't ever worry that you're going to bulk up with strength training. It's about future proofing your body
yeah,
because we're losing that muscle mass. And why that's important is, when we get older, and we don't generally like to think about getting older, but when you start losing that strength, you increase your risk of having a fall, etc. And I know
mm,
there's some stats recently that are really quite alarming about, mortality rates after having a fall, or
yeah. I mean, I don't know if any
really
of those are,
alarming.
I don't know where that those stats actually come from, but yeah, I think I saw those and it was really like basically if you fall and break something, you'll die in the next year or the next
Yes,
18 months.
yeah.
I was like, my God, this seems quite alarmist. But
It's alarming, but these things can be a good wake-up
yeah,
call.
but I think I know, and I really agree because like future proofing is a word that I keep using as well. And it's like future proofing your body to carry on being able to do the things that you do now and you just take for granted.
Yeah.
There was also something else I saw, and it was a segment saying like an early evening program, and they were asking people in a train station to, can you balance on one leg? Can you do a squat? Can you stand
Yeah.
without pushing yourself up?
Yes.
And it was really so they asked a lot of different age ranges to do this, and it was really surprising how many people in the lower end of the age scale actually couldn't do
Yeah.
this. And they were saying like when you get into, like your later life, these things are so, you just will need so much more help and support. So
Yeah.
it's so important, like the nutrition and however you want to call your exercise or, walking, strength
Yeah.
training, anything, like something is better than nothing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well with building, and when I say building muscle, I'm talking about sort of as a proportion of your body.
Yeah.
When you've got more muscle, your blood sugar is better controlled because
Right.
it's a store for glycogen. So you basically once your cells are full of sugar, insulin will then move the excess to glycogen, which is in your liver and your muscles. And then after that, the next stop off is storing it as fat. So when
Right.
you've got more glycogen stores, you've got better control. So, it's really good and to help maintain your metabolism. And I've just realized there is one massive factor that I do need to talk about
Yeah.
um, to, about perimenopause and things to really consider minimizing and cutting down on. And it's the one that nobody wants to hear.
Yeah. I know where you're going.
Yeah. So, I have to say, first of all, there is zero judgment on this. So I went sober curious 3 years ago. Well, next month it'll be 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And
Congratulations.
thank you. Do you know, I actually did it because I was getting my eggs frozen. I got to 40 and I was like, okay, I'm not in a situation to have kids yet, but I've got to do something.
Right.
And I asked them, I said, so does this mean I need to stop alcohol during this process? And they said, well, you could probably have like 3 to 5 units a week. And I was like, are you kidding me? I'm even as a nutritional therapist, my units were, they could be like well over the 14, they could be well under the 14. But I realized actually I just thought actually to stop the stress of this, I'm just going to abstain.
Yeah.
And the more that I did that, the more I was like, hold on, why am I waking up on a Sunday, even if I've just had a couple of glasses, feeling groggy? Why am I trying to work around this factor? And there's so much that we can do to support detoxification. Like I said, having those brassica vegetables, protein is important for detoxification too. Why not take out one of those major toxins?
Yeah.
It's
And I think
light,
as well,
but
it's like it's actually the bad decisions the day after that I make. I mean, I don't mean I'm not sober curious,
yeah,
but I still drink wine. It's one of my favorite pastimes. But
yeah.
I think it's that point of like sometimes it's the decisions you make the day afterwards. It's like, oh, I've
Or
really
even,
it's bad
yeah.
decisions.
But even if you're not
You
drinking a
would
lot,
normally do.
alcohol basically works against you in every way in the
Yeah.
perimenopause. And like I said, there's zero judgment, but I am a believer in a no BS approach. I want to be like very honest, and we're very misled about alcohol. And this isn't even going into any kind of conspiracy theory. I'm not about that. But we are so heavily marketed to as a
Yeah.
group in terms of the wine o'clock, the bottomless brunches, etc. The 14 unit limit a week is totally arbitrary. Even if so that I'll just briefly go through some of the ways that alcohol can be disruptive, and just so that you guys are aware,
Yeah.
because it is a decision that you make. So sleep, even one glass of wine can disrupt your sleep. Sleep is massively important because it basically it's when our brain gets, not repaired, but there's a lot of stuff going on. It's a
Yeah.
restorative thing that we need. It supports our blood sugar when we get good sleep. It helps to manage our cortisol. So it disrupts our sleep. It will dysregulate that hormone, that sex hormone balance. So it encourages more estrogen to be recirculated in the body. It affects our liver. We know that liver is important for our detoxification, and we know that liver is a glycogen store. So we want that to be functioning effectively. Alcohol massively disrupts our blood sugar balance. So, the next day when you wake up and you might be starving and craving foods that you wouldn't normally
Yeah.
crave, but also it increases our levels of cortisol. So whilst we're more sensitive to it, it's keeping those cortisol levels high for like a day or two after, and it suppresses our testosterone. So even when we're taking that decision to really work on our strength training, etc., it's so much harder. So
Yeah,
there's
it's still like it's going back to that basics thing again, isn't it? It's like if you're doing the basics and then you're
that
just
foundation
like
level.
doing the foundation level, and then this is just sort of taking away taking away from all of
Yeah,
that.
it's like I liken it to you're trying to pour water on the fire, but you're pouring petrol on it at the same time with the alcohol. So, like I said, no judgment. But I do think that just as women, we've been very misled about
Yeah,
alcohol and its impacts, and it is carcinogenic, even in low quantities. But even if you kind of think, well, actually, I'm going to keep an eye on my units. I always think that's a good thing to do. But make sure you've got like 3 days, 3 or 4 days alcohol free. And that's not to say sort of binge it all at the weekend,
yeah,
but try and kind of give yourself a limit, because the women that I've worked with, especially over the last year or two, the most successful ones in terms of improving their health have cut down on the alcohol, or not even at my recommendation. They've actually said, you know what, it's a lot easier if I just take it out. And they're really thriving.
yeah. Yeah, I guess you're right that it is one of those things, isn't it? Where if you look at cigarettes is not possible to buy a packet without being confronted with the
Mm,
possible effects of
yes, yeah,
smoking. But alcohol it's almost like it, well, it's not almost like it is that legalized,
socially acceptable.
socially
Yeah,
acceptable that really can cause huge problems for people.
yeah. Even just the way that we'll joke about it now.
Yeah.
Like I've become so conscious of it since I stopped drinking. And I'm never going to be a killjoy. And I know for me, I'm just not the kind of person that I'm quite an all or nothing person. And for me, actually trying to moderate was really stressful.
Yeah.
Um, So it just worked out better for me. And I've actually discovered is one of the most empowering things that I can do,
Mm,
because you realize when you go to a social event, you always think like, oh, I need a glass or two just to like loosen up and be
yeah.
chatty. It's nothing to do with the alcohol, it's time. We all feel a little bit, so even if you're an extrovert, we all feel a little bit of a way when we get into a social situation, but it's time that helps to thaw that. And it's so empowering when you know that you can do things like the odd event or whatever, and not drink and think, I still had a good time. That's
It's
all
also
right.
about, I think, like reframing it, isn't it? That like when
Yeah.
you go into something thinking, oh God, I need, oh, I just need a glass of wine or whatever to yeah, to loosen up, get me kind of flowing. You already precursor yourself to that. And it's like it's
Yeah.
reframing the narrative of actually, I am the same person, whether I've
Yes.
had a glass of wine or not. And I can be myself after one glass of
Yeah. And you're not waking up the
wine.
next day hiding under the duvet thinking, what did I do?
Yeah. Well, hopefully not that after one glass of wine, but
No.
yeah, if it had been a few more. But yeah, I think it is an interesting one. And you're right, it's not something that's really talked about, but actually the impacts are super high.
Yeah, because we so often use this, and I often used to use it as a way of stress relief. And
Yeah.
it's like it's really empowering when you can find other ways and just sort of almost sit with your emotions for a bit.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also with both nutrition and exercise in this way, there's an element of reframing what your, as you call it, like the foundations, is like reframing all of those things. It's like, for what am I doing X, for where am I doing for Y?
Yeah,
When you can reframe it as to, I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm not looking at an arbitrary, oh God, I was a size whatever,
yeah,
this. Like you take away all of those impacts. And it's like,
mm,
actually, what I want is I want to feel strong. I want to feel really
yes,
great. And I want to future-proof myself so
yeah,
that my children might have grown. Maybe they will have, if you have children, their children might have children. I want to be able to
yeah,
play with those children.
exactly. And
And
I'm
it's
so glad that you
future-proofing.
said that, because it's never about the weight and it's never about the dress.
No,
Even
no.
people who are wanting to, it's about that feeling. And I always encourage people to think about the feeling. And when we're talking about future proofing, it's not just sacrificing the now for later. You're benefiting now and later.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And I think as well in that way, what I mean from my own personal sort of journey into, say, I have to say weightlifting, not weightlifting, but strength training with weights. I found that I just loved it. And I love the feeling of feeling strong.
Yes.
And it's just, that's an empowering feeling in itself. And having that reframe for me
Yeah.
completely changed my thought process around, the way that I exercise. When I exercise, I don't need to convince myself to do it so much
Yeah.
because the reframe was, it's like, actually, what do I want? Not for now or for
Mm.
my summer body kind of thing, but like, what
Yeah.
do I want long term? And that really flipping it on the head and thinking about that in those things in
Yes.
a way,
It's
it really
powerful.
changed it. Yeah, it was.
I
It
have
was
to
really.
ask you, before you started strength training, did you ever actively think, I want to be strong? That's one of my goals.
No, I didn't.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's so key. Every woman that I'm working with training, they always say to me, like when we're checking in, like, I feel strong. I love it. Yet
yeah,
when we first started talking, not one of them said, I want to feel strong.
no. And I did it. And do you know what? It probably came as a side product in that way because
Mm.
my other life, let's say, is in fashion industry. And so I'm always like with lots of samples and things like
Oh,
this,
wow.
moving around. And that where I really realized it, I was putting a case into the left luggage at one of the stations in London. And I had to, it must have weighed about 30 kg, maybe a little bit more. I'm a good packer. And I had to do, so I did a really deep squat, like lifted it
Nice.
up onto this thing so that it could go through the security scanner. And the guy at the other end, he got really angry because he was like, oh my God, it's like this case is so heavy. And I said, oh, I did say that it was heavy. I put it on. He said, yeah, but I saw you lift it. Okay, thanks. So I was like, well, actually, that wasn't a problem for me. And I walked away and I was like, do you know what? Actually, that felt really good.
I
Not that
bet you
he
felt
felt
like a badass.
comforted, but like that I had, without thinking, had made it look so easy because of the strength training that I was doing. And I was like, yeah, actually, that's quite incredible. And I
That's
felt so happy
awesome.
with it. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I've just continued because it's just been, yeah, I just love it.
I love that. And I just love that every woman I know who starts strength training comes out with this love for feeling strong.
Yeah.
Nobody actively beforehand thinks I'll feel more confident when I get like when I'm strong. Like probably more recently now, it's promoted for women to be strong physically, etc. But I don't think many of us at this stage now were brought up with that, like, yeah, it's great to be strong kind of mentality.
I just don't think it was there, was it? Like that kind of like the thought feeling around it. But it's interesting because there's a woman who we recently moved house and the garden had got a bit overgrown and stuff. So we didn't want to take things out because we knew that stuff was probably plants were quite nice, but
Yeah.
so we were like, we need some help. And this lady came and she was literally here for about 8 hours going through everything. And she was maybe in her mid 60s, I would say, and she was bent over the whole day. And we were saying to her, like, my God, how did you do this? And she was just like, yeah, I do Pilates, I build back strength and I build this core strength, and I'm able to go. I was like, my God, I
That's
could
awesome.
not do that. And yeah, exactly, incredible. Like literally the whole day, just going, going, going. So I think that's like goals that I want
Yeah.
to do
Yeah.
things at that age.
Yeah. I kind of think, there's things that we'd all probably want to tell our younger self. But it's like, don't let yourself feel like that when you get older. Like, do love your older self as much as you're going to love yourself now.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Absolutely. There was one other thing actually that I wanted to ask about, and it was also, I guess, it was related probably a little bit to the estrogen topic as well, is really how women who post pause, it seems, maybe it's just in my life, a lot of women post 60 have really started to experience cholesterol issues and have been recommended for beta blockers and things like this.
Yeah,
sorry, not beta blockers, statins and things
yeah,
to reduce their levels of cholesterol. But
yeah.
my mum, randomly, she has very, very, very low cholesterol. And I think
Oh,
it's because she's never really eaten dairy, she's never really eaten red meat. I think if you cut her in half, she would basically be a chicken because that's what she eats. But it's really interesting and it's something I'd never really
so,
thought about.
yeah. So cholesterol is a bit of a funny one because we need cholesterol. The limits for cholesterol, again, quite arbitrary. Now, in within the nutritional therapy field, it's not necessarily controversy, but cholesterol is relied upon too much as a marker of
Right.
heart health. So without getting super technical, it's the kind of inflammation that can come around with high cholesterol that can encourage deposits, etc., in the arteries. The problem, and again, this is me, I'm not staying out of my lane because, like with the HRT, I can't comment on whether someone should take or not take statins. That is absolutely a conversation to have with the doctor. But one of the things that I will say is that if cholesterol is too low, or if somebody is on statins, they absolutely have to be taking their vitamin D3
Right.
alongside vitamin K2. So K2 is very overlooked, but those two.
What do they do for you?
So basically, vitamin D3 is involved in so much in the body. It's bone health, which again is really important once we're postmenopausal. But it's also D3 and K2 are very much interlinked with heart health in the sense of like calcification of those sort of deposits in the
Yeah.
arteries, but they are steroids. So if we've not got those, cholesterol is needed for the steroid hormones. So it can
Right.
actually impact our hormones like testosterone. But one thing that I've started researching recently is that most of the studies on statins have never been really done on women. And
That's
this is
like
such a
global in
common thing.
general. Nothing's been tested from the
Exactly. I was going to say,
women,
yeah.
all from a man's perspective.
Exactly. And statins is very much one of those things. So like I said, I can't really go into the statin side of things, but in terms of heart health, if there's sort of heart health history issues in the family, then I would be inclined for somebody to test for homocysteine, which is an intermediate compound that some doctors will test for, but a nutritional therapist will test for that as well, because if levels are high, that's very easy to kind of remedy with supplements. But with cholesterol, only about 80% of that is made up in the body. So foods containing cholesterol, unless you've got specific genetic predisposition, they're not going to really add that much. So I know people used to get panicked about eggs and red meat with cholesterol levels. It's more about the sugar that can get made into cholesterol. But
Like going back to the sugars you were talking about in
yeah,
carbohydrates and things like that.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. I'm somebody that I just think variety is so important. So,
Yeah.
the more variety you can get from protein foods, especially because we are creatures of habit. We do tend to stick to the same sort of proteins and the same vegetables, and the more variety we can get, the better.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you do walk around. I love it when you go, or if you're abroad or you go on holiday and you go into the supermarkets and you just see some of these vegetables and you're like,
Oh, I
what
love,
on earth
yeah,
is that? It's like, that looks very cool, but I would have no idea what to do with this.
yeah. Thank God for Google.
Yeah, exactly. Thank God for Google. Oh, and Anthea, so thank you so much. I think I'm going to be combing back through this for lots of mining of things that I'm going to be implementing myself as well. But that's just so much information to take in. So if you had to give like top tips for people to take away from what we've been talking about, what would you say is the most important things for people to focus on?
Yeah, great. So summarize the top things to focus on would be make sure you're getting your protein in each meal, reducing the snacks if you can, cutting down on the alcohol, including some of those brassica vegetables, the broccoli, cabbage, kale, Brussels sprouts, and to, yeah, get strength training as well.
Yeah.
Those would be my key takeaways.
Yeah. No, that's really excellent. I am excited to go away and start looking at some of these myself and roasting some of those Brussels sprouts.
Yeah, honestly, it's a game changer, really is.
Oh, what would you do with them? So just throw them
So
with some
you just
olive oil?
halve them, sprinkle them with olive oil, a little bit of seasoning, just roast them for like 35 minutes. And then I can either put them in a salad with some rubbed
Mm.
kale and other veg, or serve them as a side dish. You know,
Yeah.
they work really well with a roast on a
Yeah.
Sunday.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I really like the thought of adding them into a salad with a few of the bits. Oh,
Yeah, like you said, get creative in your salads. It's
yeah,
not just about lettuce and tomatoes. It's yeah,
yeah. Oh
all
yeah,
sorts.
maybe some Brussels sprouts will be making an appearance next week. I'll have to give that a go.
Do.
Oh, thank you so much, Anthea. It's been really great to chat with you.
Oh, you too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Brilliant. What a wonderful conversation with Anthea there. So much to take away. A really key insight for me was connecting nutrition as fundamental to good health as exercise is. One without considering the other means that we're always going to have to work so much harder. Anthea talks about building the foundations. Getting nutrition right for you and your body is key to setting yourself up for success. It also got me thinking how complicated our relationship with food can be. We don't always think of eating as a way to fuel our body, only what's the minimum I need to survive and lose weight? I'm not here to tell people how to eat, nor am I qualified to. I'm just sharing from my experience, having had very disordered eating in my 20s. One free frame that helped me was to realise all the stress and pressure I'd been putting on my body. I was heavily restricting calories, over exercising to compensate for what I thought was overeating, basically abusing it. My poor body, like a little workhorse donkey, just kept getting up in the morning, excessively exercising, going to work, partying, performing the hectic life I was living. Whatever I threw at it, it delivered when I was giving less than the bare minimum. It was really a light bulb moment. I had to apologize to my body and give gratitude for it continuing to give all those years I'd punished it. Realizing what damage I'd done to my body in my 20s, my periods literally stopped, was really revolutionary. I could finally change my perspective to one of fuel and get strong rather than starved and cold. With that in mind, if you find you are not eating the way you'd like to, you're on a diet and you don't stick to it long term, or can't find something that works for you, check in with yourself. What are the stories you're telling yourself? What size should you be? What should you look like? You'd be happier if you lost XX weight. Notice the should in all of this. Should for what and who? Society, your friends, family, favourite celebrity, partner? Close your eyes. Imagine that you've already achieved that goal. The size is there. Your goal weight is achieved. How has your life changed? Do you feel any different? What happens next? Another way to reframe this, think about what is your goal and what do you want to achieve for you? Envisage this. See yourself living your best life. What are the things you're doing? Who are you with? Look at your face. See how happy you are. Have a think. Write down all the stories you tell yourself, then write the positive alternative to those stories. See where you can get to. Can you reframe your current perspective to one that's about building something for the future rather than short-term goals tied to a figure? Finally, don't aim for perfection, aim for good. Be good at what you do and do it with intention. Perfection is unachievable. The goalposts are always moving and it only helps to keep you miserable. When we inevitably slip off the wagon, as we humans do, hello, cheese and wine, we shrug and get back to where we are at. The goal is the intention to be good at what we do, not the prison of perfection. If you'd like to talk about any of these issues, get in touch. I can help work on your goals and mindset transformation. Don't miss next week's episode where I'm talking to the fabulous Annie Lucas from Stitch Social about all things clothing. Join us then.